I do think it's harder for students now, though. I mean, I think, like, I feel that students they have at least twice, if not 10 times as many tools to learn as we did.
Yes.
We still expect them to develop kind of critical capacity. There's a lot of noise for them to have to wait for.
There are no clear projects that are.
There's no
very
single
little sense of
methodology.
very little
It's
sense
not
of
like you
collective.
do the 9-square grid like we did, and then you do,
I mean, how did you? What were your? And hopefully just moving beyond whatever might be made of this conversation, so we can just open it up more radically. What kind of response did you guys have with Sarah Whiting's presentation, where she seemed to be coming in, like pulling the weapon out in a sense and brandishing it and saying, that we've settled into a model of proliferation and there's a way in which maybe we've lost something, but she also was building a case for schools of thought, the relationship between moments in time and the discipline and institutions. I found that to be, out of today's group, one of the more provocative invocations of the future, in the sense of really implicating the disciplinary mechanism of architecture, implicating institutions, implicating forms of discourse. And
I mean, I think that the proliferation of ideas has a usefulness.
Sure.
I think that in that context, the schools that position themselves very clearly pedagogically as we are this, stand out, because most schools are a smorgasbord of everything. So I think pedagogically that's interesting. I think having met people who are really trained in schools of thought, like the Cooper Union School versus the Cornell School, etc. I actually think it might be better to be exposed to the proliferation.
Yes. Possibility.
Yeah.
So if it means a heavy house style, if the lack of proliferation means a house style, an academic or institutional style, that's what I mean by house style.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a way of constructing the section, for example, or a way of conceiving of it.
I mean, I think that's fine as long as the student, you are aware that this is a pedagogical conceit of one way of learning architectural education. But I think as a student, sometimes it's hard to recognize that.
Sure.
Well, that's the thing in relation to your earlier comment about students having more options and more tools. So I went to the final reviews at UCLA last spring. I have to say, it was an amazingly consistent and super strong set of work. And one of the things about the final reviews is they asked the outside critics to comment on it, and I just didn't know where it went. Like, in a way, because it was super coherent about digital and all these things, and there was a kind of uniformity, but like at a very high level. And so I think in the one sense, you through expertise you gain strength and quality, but then it's not clear to me how the students then go on and take those tools and move them into other things. And so that's what I wonder about. Like, there's this sort of flip side to like having no ideology and proliferate, but then that's a flattening model, and you need to stack to get height. And so I think it's a trade-off. And like right now, I think it's particularly an issue, not because of, like in Sarah's example, I'm not sure what those models would be, like what replaces the 9-square now.
Yeah,
but
right.
I think a lot of the digital schools have answered that question with their own new methodologies, and they're super focused. I'm just not sure if that focus gives them the tools to answer other questions than the one they've asked themselves.
Are you finding in your position, which I understand you're newly minted as a section head or whatever the actual title is, is these kind of considerations ascending on your to-do list, so to speak, to really sort of parse through these decisions?
I think our own school has always had a good formal, in terms of like a sort of progressive formal bent. It was at the forefront of a lot of the computer stuff. A little bit older, like things like Form Z was actually developed at OSU. So it's like very implicated in those things.
Yeah.
And that's its sort of model. It's not my model. And so the question is, can you sort of like open it up a bit to these other concerns? I mean, I guess in our own school, we're trying to make it go flatter because the flatness will reach some of the things that come up in the conference today. But I think it's always a struggle.
Yeah,
I do think the expertise does give you capacities for quality that Ron doesn't.